Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Kristin Kurtz, and I'm also the founder of New Wings Coaching. I help and empower wild-hearted and adventurous women of faith feeling caged and stuck unlock their true purpose and potential, break free from limitations, and thrive with confidence, courage, and hope. If you're curious to learn more about coaching with me, head to newwingscoaching.net and be sure to explore the show notes for ways to connect with me further. Get ready to dive in as we uncover empowering keys and insights in this episode. So tune in and let's unlock hope together. Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm Kristin Kurtz, your host. I pray this episode is like a holy IV of hope for your soul. Please help me welcome Susan Otten to the show. I am so excited to have her here today and wanted to give a shout out to Heidi Haino, who is the founder of our local chapter here in the Twin Cities of a networking group called Few. So shout out to Heidi. I met Susan there, and I was just so privileged to be able to hear her amazing testimony of something that she walked out recently, several years ago. And she is definitely a trailblazer and what I would also call a trail guide. So, Susan, would you be open to first telling us a little bit about yourself before we get into your amazing story?
Sure, yeah. Let's see. Well, I grew up on a dairy farm, which really taught me the importance of faith,
Mm,
family, and helping others if you can. I always love the analogy of farming being the only industry that really isn't competitive. You can have two farms kitty corner across the dirt road from each other, and they're not competing.
oh, wow.
But if there were two gas stations across the corner, from each other, they would be competing. So that's one of the things I love about growing up on a farm is that learning that, importance of helping others and watching for ways that you can help. So
Mhm,
with that, I went to University of Minnesota here in the great state of Minnesota, first two
mhm,
years up north in Duluth, and then came down to the St. Paul campus and actually achieved my goal of getting a job in what I was studying, which was to be a 4-H youth agent, so a faculty of the
mhm.
University of Minnesota, but out in the counties that was helping educate kids.
Oh,
And I was there at a time where I was transitioning not just to farm kids, but to
mhm.
city kids too. So it was a
Oh,
great
cool.
time for that organization, a lot of fun. And but then I had to relocate to Chicago because
Mhm,
that's where my then boyfriend, now husband,
mhm,
moved and got his job as he graduated, and we needed to be together to be married. So
mhm.
that was great. And then I had an amazing career. I started with the agriculture equipment company quickly after, I guess I was there 3 years, 5 years, something like that.
Mhm.
But I answered an ad in the newspaper. Yes, if you can
Oh,
believe it, that's how
yes.
you applied for jobs.
Yes, I remember.
And it was to a little company then called Apple Computer.
Oh,
And I talked my way into that job and had an amazing 15 years there. One of my regrets is I didn't keep all my business cards. I think I would have had a full deck of 52 because
oh.
very dynamic company, very entrepreneurial. So I learned early on the benefits of being an entrepreneur, thinking
Mhm.
creatively, trying things. If didn't work, try it again, make it better.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a boss one time that said, that $1 million project you did that didn't work out so great,
Mhm.
do it again. Don't lose so much money this time.
Oh, I love that.
Because he believed in the concept and it turned out great and that program grew. And my last year at Apple, I did over 10,000 events. And
Wow.
actually, it was a marketing function, and normally marketing is an expense to the company, right?
Mhm.
But I returned cash back to the company. They gave me a budget, but I didn't need it, and I gave them even more money back because it was um, a way that I could really help grow the company, and it didn't even cost anything. And I had a staff of
Mhm.
4 people, so it was great, a lot of
Wow.
fun. Teaches you the importance of process and process improvement because
Mhm.
we did it again. We did it 10,000 times that last year, and it was awesome.
Wow.
Then I went on to do some independent consulting, which I really loved. That was at a time when Apple employees or former employees were in really high demand. So I got to work with small companies
Okay.
and also medium and big sized companies. And then I landed probably. well, I don't know. It's hard to pick your favorite company, I guess, but
Mhm.
Apple was pretty cool. Then I though worked for as like CMO for a large agriculture company, and it was global. They were
Mhm.
distributed in 140 countries. Got
Oh,
to do
wow.
fun things like launch social media. Um,
Mm.
Corporate wasn't really doing that much social media, but it's like, come on, boys, because
Yeah.
I was the lone female in, in a
Huh? Mm.
big company, and it felt like it wasn't true, but that's what it felt like. It's like we could be number one in social media. We're number three in sales, but we could be number one in social media, and let's
Uh,
give those farmers something to do other than watching sports scores,
sure.
playing Angry Birds on their automated autonomous tractors. So
Oh, fun.
that was fun.
Yeah.
Um, and got to use cool tools like Google Translate when it wasn't really that good, but it was good
Yeah.
enough because we had to
Yeah.
translate into 25 languages in our for our website and social
Mhm.
media and stuff like that. So that was fun. Came back to the great state of Minnesota and started a company called Indie Do Good, which is a logistics company, otherwise known as a 3PL or third party logistics company. And we
Mhm.
do warehousing, shipping for direct to consumer.
Mhm.
We'll help support for Amazon, do
Mhm.
fulfilled by Amazon or fulfilled by merchant, FBM, or if you want it fulfilled by Amazon, FBA, we'll
Okay.
kit for it and get it ready so you don't have so much damage or shrinkage, I guess is a technical term,
Mhm.
shipping through Amazon. And then also for large retail. So we love shipping pallets. It's a lot easier to ship a pallet full of product than that amount of direct to consumer orders. So we're
Wow.
called Indie Do Good because we look for companies that have a strong element of doing good, either through the product itself, like might be really clean food, or
Yeah.
herbs that help people,
Mhm.
with problems, homeopathic stuff,
Mhm.
or shelf-stable food.
Mm.
Anyway, we like helping them because the more successful they are, then the more good they can do.
Yes. That's
So
so
there's
good.
that.
I love
And
that name too. I just have to
yeah,
say.
it's fun. Yeah, independent companies that do good, and we're
Yes.
here to help you. So,
Mhm.
um, let's see. So that's kind of the work side, the personal
Yeah.
side. I two kids, amazing kids. Our son is a wealth advisor. Our daughter is an emergency veterinarian, so very different career paths.
Mhm.
Very, very helpful. Both
Mm.
both of them are helping us out with stuff. Our daughter lets us know when something's wrong with our dog and we should fix something. Like I just ordered a new food bowl for our
Oh.
dog because she's a large breed dog and she eats too fast, like she inhales
Oh.
her food, and
Yeah.
that can cause the stomach to flip in the chest cavity or in the abdomen. And that's a really hard surgery. So we're trying to keep sweet little Eve
Oh.
healthy. And so she's got a bowl now that's like a maze, so she can't inhale her food in a nanosecond. It took her
Yeah.
like 3 minutes to eat this morning. I couldn't believe it. It was great.
I've heard about those bowls. They sound kind of cool. Like it
Yeah,
gives dogs like a little treasure hunt to eat their own food.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, and I thought she would like be frustrated, but mostly she loves her food. So she
Um,
hung in there, and
yeah.
she was kind of intrigued by it.
Yeah.
I hope she continues to enjoy it. So
Well, we might have to link that bowl in the show notes because I'm guessing that somebody
yeah,
might be like, "What is this that they're talking
yeah,
about?" So,
I know.
I'll have to ask you
Yeah.
where that they can be found, and
Yeah,
we can add that in the
we
show
ordered
notes.
it on good old Amazon. It wasn't that expensive. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll look it up after the show,
Yeah.
send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, and I know they make different ones, and this one's nice because I was surprised for the cost. It was less than $10, I think,
Oh.
and
Oh.
it's pretty heavy. I thought it would like because they're going at it, they're trying to get their food out, and I thought it would like
Great.
slide around the floor, but it's good.
Oh,
E-
wow.
Eve did well. We'll see how she does it supper time. So,
Oh, that's very sweet.
yeah. So,
Oh.
and then and our son and his wife Mackenzie have our first grandchild.
Mm.
It's he trip is a joy, and I get to babysit him 1 day a week, and
Mhm.
that's so fun. I'm kind of going through a withdrawal now because it's summer and Kenzie
Yeah.
is a teacher, so they
Oh.
don't need me anymore. Uh, but but that's not true. I guess on Friday I get to babysit him because Kinsey's got an opportunity to get away
Oh,
from home for a day.
that
So
would be
that
wonderful.
that'll be fun. Yeah.
I love if you guys are listening, if you listen well, like I tend to love listening to people. Um, Susan says fun a lot. She is very fun. She is so fun. And I was just when we were talking right before this, I was just saying how God is so fun, right?
Yeah.
And he is so fun that he brought you on like one of the most amazing adventures ever. I would love for you to share your story about that and kind of how this all like transpired because I look at you and I'm like, wow, you are so inspirational, and I can't wait for people to be so inspired by your story in that
Oh,
realm.
that's sweet. That's very humbling. So in 2022, my daughter was going to be done with her vet med internship or residency and ready to start a job. But before she started a job, she and a friend of hers who was also finishing vet school um, wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail.
Hmm.
And it's goes from Maine to Georgia. The year it kind of changes the length every year because as they repair the trail or fix parts of it, the length changes. But um, I rounded up to 2,200. But we when we did it, it was 2,194.3 miles along the trail.
Wow.
And and I love that you called me a trailblazer because the
Yes.
trail is marked by what they call blazes, and they're
Stop it.
yes.
Wow.
Didn't you know that?
No.
Oh, so I'm like, oh, that's where Trailblazer comes from, and they're
Um,
just white splotches of paint every once in a while on a tree so that you can find your way.
oh
And
wow.
it's so you are a trailblazer. There is mostly like decent paths or you can see where to go, but sometimes there's not,
Okay.
especially in the fall when the crazy leaves. And you've not lived, this is one where I wouldn't call it fun. You
Mhm.
have not lived until you've walked in trees up or leaves up to your knees in the fall, dry
Oh,
leaves. They
yeah.
make so much noise. They
Yeah.
they gave us headaches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was better dry than wet. They gave us
Yeah.
something else when they were wet.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But the purpose of this epic journey was to raise Parkinson's disease research funds.
Hmm.
We our organization that we worked with was Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Hmm.
And the reason we did it, the why behind it is my husband, Greta, our daughter's dad,
Hmm.
uh, has Parkinson's. He was diagnosed at 51
Hmm.
and doing pretty good
Yeah.
up until like really a few years ago.
Okay.
He was good enough. He could, stay on his own mostly
Hmm.
while we were on trail. We had our son and daughter-in-law here, close by to check in
Hmm.
on him and cook
Yeah.
cook him a nice healthy meal once in a while. So
Hmm.
it was fine, but that was the why behind it. And we raised a little under $100,000
Wow.
while we were on, well, with that initiative. I was going to say while we were on trail, but people continued to give for a while after
Wow.
the trail was done.
That's
We
incredible.
we we had to start in Maine, which is at the northern end,
Hmm.
which is backwards
Hmm.
because at the last minute, not last minute, my daughter's friend that was going to go with her, the other veterinarian, decided she couldn't do it. She needed to start working and start paying off her vet school bills.
Hmm.
So she had to back out. And I'm like, well, and we used to, Greta used to go to Mercer University and their mascot was the Bears. And so I
Wow.
became Mama Bear and she became Baby Bear. And this Mama Bear was not going to let Baby Bear do the trail alone. I
Yeah.
didn't know much about the trail. I knew it was a long way. I knew
Hmm.
there were some stories about dangerous things along the trail. So I was not going to let her
Yeah.
go do the trail on her own.
Yeah.
And so she let me come along. I did some hiking with her and her friend Shannon,
Hmm.
but not like the Uber hiking that the Appalachian Trail is.
Hmm.
So we started up north because she didn't get done with her internship until the middle of July or the beginning of July. Then she had to interview and find a job.
Mhm.
So she interviewed and got offers and negotiated and all that stuff and accepted and said, "Okay, remember this is July." She said to them, "I'll see you in January." And then they're looking at her, "What?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I've made this commitment to myself and my family to hike the Appalachian Trail for Parkinson's disease research, and my mom and I are starting July
Mhm.
15th." And they're
Mhm.
like, "Wow." And they held her job.
Oh,
So, and
that's
they did
incredible.
a number of articles in the employee newsletter so people could know they have a new staff member, but may not see much of her for a few months.
Yeah,
So that was great.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
And so we started but before that, there's a lot of work to prepare, just like in life. You can't just go do something big without
Mhm.
preparing for it, right?
Mhm.
And so but I don't know if people that are listening really know about Minnesota. We don't really have mountains in Minnesota like they do on the Appalachian Trail.
Right.
The Appalachian Trail is the shortest of the three major north-south trails in the United States, but it's also the steepest. It's like going up and down Mount Everest 16 times.
Mm.
And so with it being the shortest, that makes it by far the steepest of the
Yeah.
trails.
Yeah.
So elevation was something that I couldn't really prepare for here
Yeah.
in Minnesota. I
Right.
did get my backpack early enough that I could start training with it because was worried that my back wouldn't be strong enough to carry the
Oh,
stuff I needed along the trail because you have to carry everything you need. It's not
right.
like you're gonna check into a hotel every night and have shampoo and
Mhm.
all the stuff you need or food.
Mhm.
So when we started out our backpacks, we were a little a little over generous, I guess, or I don't know. Part of it was being we were starting in the north.
Mhm.
After you start, there's 100-mile wilderness that there's no access to grocery stores.
Oh,
So
wow.
we didn't know how fast we were going to be going.
Mhm.
So how long is it going to take us to do 100 miles? We figured we better pack enough for 12 days just to be
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
And so our packs weighed like 42, 43, 44 pounds, something like that.
Oh my
And,
word.
so I was afraid, that I wouldn't be able to sustain
Mhm.
hiking every day. Not that I have a bad back, but that's still nobody really
A lot.
lugs that amount of weight around daily,
Mhm.
especially climbing up and down mountains. So,
Right.
so I got my backpack and I started putting hand weights or disc weights in
Mhm.
them to increase the weight slowly. I
Mhm.
still didn't have the elevation to practice on, so I would walk up and down the ditches alongside the road, just try to get some
Oh, that's cool.
incline to
Yeah.
work on my glutes and hips and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So,
Yeah.
I
And
did
can
what I
I
could.
stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Because you're tiny. Like you're tiny.
Oh.
And can you tell us in 2022, how old were you? Ever hear something on this show that stirs something deep, like a nudge from God that there's more? That's stirring. It's not random. I'm Kristin Kurtz, host of Hope Unlocked and the founder of New Wings Coaching, and I'm inviting you into a 45-minute unlocking session, a sacred space to press in, hear what heaven is saying, and activate your next bold step. If you're a trailblazer or kingdom voice ready to break free from doubt and live fully alive, this is for you. Book now at newwingscoaching.net/hope unlocked for special listener pricing. You were born to live uncaged and unapologetically bold. Now back to the show.
I was 65 when we started. I turned 66 on the trail in December when we were almost done. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm about five. I haven't measured myself a long time. 5'3", 5'4".
Yeah.
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 And
So I just want you guys to know, like, as you're listening to her, like the
yeah.
demographic and the just amazingness that she has, like truly.
Yeah.
It'll just be this, illumination of it's never too late, right?
Yeah.
It's never too late. You're
Yes.
never too old. You don't have to be a certain age. You don't have to look a certain way to do anything. So,
Yeah. And that's such a great reminder that, that is so true. And yeah, first of all, you have to kind of combine little old me with my 27-year-old, 6 foot tall, two sport
Right.
D1 athlete
Yes.
daughter who's done more marathons than she can count, and including an Ironman to raise money
Oh,
for Parkinson's.
goodness.
So, and I have to keep up with her. Like literally, she'd take a stride, I would have to take like one and a half
Yeah.
to keep up with her. So there were places on the trail where she would say, like if we were doing a rock scramble or climbing down a mountain or
Mhm.
whatever, okay, just put your hand here and your foot here. And it's like,
What?
but my foot, there's like a foot, like 12 inches before my foot will reach where you're telling me to put my foot.
Right.
She said, okay, well, just let go of your hand and just slide down the mountain, slide down the rock until your foot hits there.
Like,
Well, what? That's just weird. But it did have an advantage. There was one point where we were scrambling. It's called Mahoosic Notch, and it's a mile long, and it took us like 3 hours. It's like you're bouldering, you're climbing under stuff. You have to take your backpack off and pass it through and hand it up and stuff like that. And there was this one place where I'm like, you're kidding me. The rock was like at least twice as at least twice as tall as me.
oh my
And there
goodness.
was no way I could get up, and there was no route to go around it. And I'm just standing there looking at it, and like, and then my
Mhm.
daughter caught up to me, and she's like, "Oh my!" But you know, there was so many cool miracles of God
Yeah.
along the trail, and this was one of them because there was a family that was going the other direction,
Mhm.
and this big, beast of a man
Yeah.
just flops down on his belly, puts his hand like bends over, like he's got his waist at the edge, so he
Mhm.
can be long enough to grab my hand.
Oh, goodness.
And I had my backpack on, and he said, "Okay, ready?" And he lifted me up on top
Oh,
of that rock. And I'm
wow.
just like, how did how did I was speechless. I couldn't, I guess, like I didn't even have time to think about it or like decline or like be bashful or anything. He's just, give me your hand. And he isn't the kind of guy you really argue with. And he just
Yeah.
pulled me up. And like, oh my goodness, that was great. Um,
Um,
but there were times that definitely, you know, height is an advantage on the trail. Let me just put it that way. So
mhm,
it was
mhm.
it was crazy.
Yeah.
But so we're starting out, we're going the wrong direction. We're also starting really late. And
Mhm.
that's the other reason why we had to go north to south, because they close the mountain at the beginning of the trail, because it gets so much snow, and people die on that mountain. So they close it. You can't get up there to start.
Mhm.
And that's another thing. You hike on your first day 4 miles for the fun of it to get to the top of the mountain, which is the official start of the trail.
Okay.
That's Mount Katahdin.
Yeah.
And so that's fun, carrying that 42-pound backpack. Then you get to the top, take a picture by the sign that says the start of the trail, and then turn around and go back down. Now there's
Yeah.
multiple ways to get down. And of course, my daughter didn't want to like go the way we just came up. So we
Mhm.
go down, which it's not, I don't think that one is called Knife's Edge, but that's what it kind of looks like. I mean, it's a sheer drop off on one side, and the other side is up against more rocks and just crazy. And that's literally it's our first day. And she says, okay, hand here, foot here. And my foot didn't reach. And she said to me,
Oh,
just let go. And
yeah.
I'm like, I'll catch you, I'll use my hands like a stirrup to stop, so you won't fall. And I
Mhm.
mean, that's something that we learned early on was trust.
Yeah.
And um, there's people in this world that are, smarter and more capable.
Mhm.
And I think of business leaders or people that are leading very diverse teams, or, and sometimes you just have to stop and listen
Mm,
to, if you're the leader and you're leading people.
mm,
Sometimes you're leading leaders. They may not have that title, but they're really smart or experienced or have vision that you don't have.
mm,
And being open to that is so important. I mean, on the trail, we learned so many lessons. It just was such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And like you had mentioned, that really age isn't a factor, size isn't a factor. And we met numbers of people on the trail that I felt really proud to have influenced some of their future decisions. Like one sweet couple, yeah, when we retire, we're going to do the trail. And they invited us into their home, and they're called trail angels. That's like an official term on the trail.
Love
People
that.
that reach out and offer help. And
Mhm.
people would follow us on our YouTube channel, which is Appalachian Trail for Parkinson's disease. There's 96 videos out there,
Mhm.
including one at the end that is the whole trail in like less than an hour. I think it's like
Okay.
54 minutes or 56 minutes or something like that.
Mhm.
And but they said after they had us into their home and gave us a warm bed to sleep in. And if I remember right, we had our own bedrooms in that house.
Mm.
And okay, we shared a bathroom, but it was a
Mhm.
bathroom. It
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't a shovel you went and digged a hole, you know.
Oh.
So it was, they cooked us a meal, they did our laundry, and that's typical of what trail angels will do. But they
Mhm.
said after meeting us and spending time with us in their home, they're like, what are we waiting for? We can carve out time. We can do a weekend hike. We can take our week's vacation and do a hike. We don't need to wait. There was
Right.
other people that were, we met this really sweet group of older ladies that I don't know if it was every weekend, but they baked cookies and they had them in prepackaged, bags for us. And they met hikers on the trail and handed out fresh baked cookies. And they
Fun.
said after meeting us, they're like, well, we can hike. If you can hike,
Oh,
we can hike. So
fancy.
that was so cool. And just sweet things like that we learned from people along the trail. Another family that had us in their home, the husband was hiking sections of the trail. Instead, it's hard to do the whole thing because it's hard to get that much time off. It
Yeah.
took us 154 days on trail, and we were away from home like 5.5 months. And I guess it was 5 months, 10 days, a little bit less, because our goal was to be home by Christmas.
Mm.
And the third hurricane was coming in and slamming the East Coast. And we were kind of used to it, by then, being in the weather and stuff like that. And we had the clothes for it. But we
Mhm.
didn't want the people that were cheering us in at the end, because we used to live in Atlanta, and the southern terminus isn't that far from where we lived. So we had a bunch of people that came out. And then Greta put a message out on social media, extra brownie points if you wear an ugly Christmas sweater or Christmas attire, double points if you bring a dog.
Oh,
And I think she said something about, that we're going to Moe's. It's a Mexican restaurant that we loved when we lived down there. And we're
yeah.
going to Moe's afterwards. So anybody who wants to come with, feel free. But
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, just it made for such great memories. And that, yes, you can do more than you can think or imagine,
Yeah.
especially with, like, for me, God was such an important part of our team. And I
Mhm.
broke my learnings down into tools. You need the right tools, right? And on the trail, you need a lot of gear. We can talk about that. But if you have the best gear in the world and you don't know how to use it, or how to
Mhm.
throw up that tent in the pouring rain, or how to get, a fire started when everything you see and touch is wet, and
Mhm.
you're out of gas, fuel, um, what do you do? What do you eat? And the third thing, component or way that I broke down the learnings was team.
Mm.
And Greta was an amazing team leader. It took me a while, literally a few thunks upside the head, to realize that she was a better leader than I was, even though I was older and, business executive, blah, blah, blah. That really
Yeah.
doesn't matter. The things that she was better at are the things that mattered along the trail. So I did learn to back off, back
Mm.
down, and let her lead and encourage her leadership. And otherwise, may not have ended the way it ended, which was fabulous. We accomplished our goal.
Yeah.
Because we had, get home by Christmas, raise money for Parkinson's, and the third goal really was don't die. And came close a couple times, but I had two ER worthy head injuries. one on day 18, which isn't that far into it.
Right.
Kind of makes you stop and think, but tripped on a root, hit my head on a root. And then what happened next was one of the regrets I have of the trail. Not hitting my head,
Mhm.
getting 9 stitches, but I didn't, it was about 1:30 in the afternoon, beautiful August day. Hadn't seen anybody on trail all day. And when I sat up, at my side were two gentlemen. And the one says to the other one, "Hey, Joe, know when I fell last week and I hit my head? I think I have some of those steri strips left in my backpack. Can you get it out while I tend to the lady?" And then he goes, "Oh, and you know that big waterproof bandage that we put on top of it to hold all the blood in? We'll need that too." And I didn't ask them. My regret was I didn't ask them to turn around to see the angel wings.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were just amazing. And they were going the opposite direction. They got me all bandaged up on my way. They're like, "Are you okay to hike?" And I said, "Yep." And they're like, "Well, the road is about 3.5 miles that way. You're going the right direction." And off they went, and off we went. And so that was miracle number one. Then we
Right.
get to the road crossing.
Mhm.
We didn't even have our backpacks off. We didn't have our thumbs out to hitchhike. And a car stopped. And the guy rolled down the window and said, "You gals need some help?"
I love that.
And they were so cute. And they were like weekend hiking and camping and stuff. And we said, "Yeah, we need to get to an ER, but we don't have any connection. We can't, we don't have any Wi-Fi. We don't know which way to go." And he turns to his wife and says, "Hey, we go past the hospital on the way home, don't we?" And she said, "Yeah, it's more than an hour away." And he says, "Jump in." They were going right past it
Wow.
and took us to the front door. 9 stitches later, the ER doc is asking us, "So where are you staying tonight? You need a ride?" When does a doctor ask you that kind of,
Right. Right.
crazy.
Exactly.
Wait, well, we didn't know where we were staying. Most were hungry and tired and had to find where we were going to stay. And so we start walking and carrying our backpacks. And now I have a big bloody bandage on my head, but at least I have 9 stitches that were holding it together so it quit bleeding. And stopped at we're standing. Oh, this is the other thing. It was 2022, so a lot of these little towns along the trail, all the restaurants were closed on Mondays and sometimes Tuesdays, and this was a Monday night. So we didn't know where we were going to find food because and so we're standing at this like local branded A&W type drive-in restaurant, and should we just have ice cream for supper? Nothing's going to be available. It's right here. So we're standing there pondering and discussing, and this guy, big motorcycle dude's got a big old, chopper Harley sitting there, and he's like, "What's your story?" And
That's your story.
he's like talking to us, and he's like, "Okay, well, here's $50 for Parkinson's. Here's a
Oh,
20 for supper."
oh,
And there's a hotel about a half mile up that I'm sure they have room, and right next door is a Chinese restaurant. Get yourself a good meal.
oh.
And he said, and where did you get off on the trail? And we're like, "Oh, we're not quite sure, but it was, an hour north of here." And he says, "Well, our daughter lives up that way, and my wife's been wanting to go see her, so she'll take you back to the trail tomorrow morning and go see our daughter like she's been trying to." So everything just worked out
Yeah.
beautifully.
Yeah.
And no concussion, nothing. I fell again um, about halfway through, or not quite, the great state of Pennsylvania, which is known as Rocksylvania on the trip or on the trail. And standy up, pointy, wobbly rocks that you're hiking on. And I knew I was going down, so I did the tightest tuck and roll I could do so I didn't smash my face and break my teeth or nose, poke my eye out on these pointy rocks, and hit the top of my head. And that was 10 staples, and that's a little weird getting your head stapled together. But
Yeah. And doesn't the head like bleed a lot
oh,
too? Like was it on the top of your head?
yes, and it bled so much and it wouldn't stop because, there's nothing holding it together. I had a buff because it was warm.
Mhm.
And, when the steri strips were on it before, it kind of held it shut. And then I put the buff on top of it that had enough compression that it
Mhm.
slowed the bleeding. But the one on the top of my head, it just kept dripping and bleeding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to walk with
Yeah.
one trekking pole on these standy up, pointy, wobbly rocks
Yeah.
with the buff on top of my head, me trying to do compression down for a
Mhm.
1.5 miles before there was a road crossing.
And you still had your backpack on.
Yeah, I think both times though, Greta lightened the load a little bit, so I didn't have, but she couldn't carry both packs. That'd
Right.
be,
Yeah.
70 pounds. So, there is one time where she did carry part of my pack because I had rolled my ankle really bad, but it wasn't a break, so
Mhm.
just keep walking on it. But it
Yeah.
helped to not have that much weight.
Mhm.
Anyway, so the trail was amazing, taught us amazing lessons. One thing that I really loved about the trail is the lessons are so extensible, so universal. They apply to, I think I mentioned, leadership and also I've I've done a workshop at an entrepreneurs competition, a collegiate competition. I've done a workshop at using the story as a metaphor for the journey to well-being and mental, good mental health.
Mhm.
And it's a, I'm sad when I say it's a once in a lifetime experience because I would love to get out there and do it again. I just don't know if I would ever have that amount of time.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do it by myself.
Mhm.
Um, now my husband's Parkinson's is worse, and I'm not sure he could safely be good for 5.5 months, or the other trails are longer, so they would take longer. But
Yeah.
that shouldn't stop me. You can still get outside in God's beauty and God's creation and draw
Right.
power and energy from that.
Mhm.
And, that's what helps me uh, to stay balanced and focused and focused on God because man, who makes creation like this? Who makes trees that have big fluffy, bonnets and or the tree that I'm looking at outside my office window that
Mhm.
is dead in the middle, the center branch.
Mhm.
But as you pointed out so wisely, each side of the tree looks like it's holding hands up to heaven. And
Yeah.
and
They're
like,
raising and praising.
yes, yes, I love that.
Mhm.
And we got to get that dead part cut out so it grows nice again. They're so resilient. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, I can have a raisin and praising team tree
Yeah.
hugger. Yeah.
The
Every
Aaron and her, holding
yeah,
up Moses's arms, right?
yeah, yeah. Just
Um, well,
that
you
one.
mentioned even the word resilient, right?
Mhm.
So on this journey, you said it was how many miles again?
2,194.3. And that doesn't count the trips walking into town and back when you have to go get groceries.
So did you guys keep track of how many steps you took too?
Um, I suppose we could add them up. We had a paper map in case our
Mhm.
Um, GPS doesn't really work great on the trail. We had a
Mhm.
satellite communication device if
Mhm.
we, in case of emergency, if we had to put out a distress call.
Mhm.
And that mapped our location. And we had a group of like family and friends that we'd send a message at the end of every day, we're safe, we're at camp, or we're safe, we're in town. And it would grab the location of where we're at and send that in the message. So at least they would have something, that would be 24 hours old if someone had to come find us or something. Um, there was one time when I thought for sure we were going to have to get medevaced out because I was walking on what a knife's edge, and Greta was ahead. And sometimes these rocks have like fissures in them or cracks, and
Mhm.
this was a very smooth, slanted rock.
Mhm.
And Greta had stopped to turn around and made sure I was coming okay. And I climbed with the face of the rock, kind of rock scrambled up to the top, and then we can just walk across it. Oh, and it was drizzling. It was slightly damp, just enough to
Yeah.
make the rock so slippery. And I
Oh,
took one step onto the top of that rock, not
mhm.
realizing it was going to be slippery like that, and slid down the rock until my downhill leg dropped into one of those cracks.
Yeah.
And of course, the momentum and the weight of my pack continued to push me down the rock. And Greta said she saw my leg bend sideways, like at about a 45-degree, or maybe a little more than that. It wasn't 90 degrees, but she saw the leg bend where it's not supposed to bend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still have a bruise that's like a permanent dent in the muscle on that
Um,
leg. It's and if I would have gone over the edge, I mean, it was a blessing that my leg dropped into that crack. Otherwise, I would have slid down the face of the rock and dropped probably mm, 40 feet
oh my word.
to the little rock chunks below. So that
Ugh.
was that was a good thing that I
Yeah.
had a bent leg. So
So you were in essence doing like rock climbing, right?
yeah,
Had you done that before?
no, and that was a surprise. I thought it was, a trail, a hike, a walk in the
Yeah.
woods, right?
Right. Like you're like, oh, this is gonna be great. It's
Yeah, just nuts. And I mean, Mahoosuc was the worst because it was like giants took rocks and thought it'd be fun to just throw them down this crevice, this
oh my
ravine in
word.
the mountain, or
Oh,
somebody that mapped the trail had a
mm,
sick sense of humor and, oh yes, let's just have them go up this rocky, rock choked ravine.
mm,
Okay, boys, you could have done it like around the side of this rock. We wouldn't
right.
have to go straight through it.
Like
But
create some stairs or something.
yeah, yeah. Well, there was places where that during the Depression, it was the civilian corps that
Mhm.
they did cut steps and rocks in
Oh, they
some
did.
places, and that was great. But yeah, I kind of almost fell down one of those too, and
Wow.
good old Greta came to help me up and stepped on my trekking pole that then
Yeah.
thwacked me in the eye and had a great black eye, and that was like day 6 or something like that.
So I'm just getting this picture of you. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're not, and I'm just imagining myself, like you don't do rock climbing.
No.
You kind of go into this like, not fully knowing like what it's gonna be like, which to me is like huge faith, right? So
Yeah.
you're standing there looking at this like rock mountain. What's going through your head? Like what is going through your head when you see
Yeah. Well, one thing was it was never an option to quit.
that? Okay.
And I think
Say that
that's
again.
never an option to quit.
Okay.
And I think that's so important to life to have like a purpose or
Yeah.
something that's bigger than yourself. And
Yeah.
even like every time I'd fall, um, which was every day. I mean, my goal, I tried real hard. I don't think I had a day. I'd have to double check with Greta because it's kind of a blur, but I
Mhm.
don't think I had a day that I didn't have some type of fall. And
Mhm.
we even define the fall. Like if I could stop my downward momentum with my hand and my butt didn't touch the ground or my knee didn't touch the ground, that was not a fall.
Okay. So you had
But
different levels of
yeah,
falling.
yeah. But I tried real hard to not fall, and it's just your center of gravity's off. I'm not that strong. I mean, you got stronger. You also are dog tired.
Mhm.
We average 14 and a quarter miles a day. On
Wow.
average, if you hike the trail, you burn 5,000 calories a day.
Wow.
We couldn't carry that much food, so we're, losing weight,
Mhm.
not as, I mean, we made up for it when we got into town. Then it was fully loaded, like, I don't know how many grams of sugar, 64 grams of sugar, Mountain Dew, pounded
Wow.
those down. Like we'd split a 6-pack between the two of us, like in the first
In one sitting?
15 minutes in town. Yeah, I mean, always dehydrated.
Mhm.
Water is heavy to carry. We had a water filter system, but still, you try not to drink that much during the day because you have to stop and pee all the time. And then you really don't want to drink. We drink good as soon as we get to camp, but then
Mhm.
you don't want to get up in the middle of the night and have to go out, you know.
Yeah.
Where's the shovel? Where's the what's
Hmm.
toilet paper? You don't, know. So yeah, it's complicated. So it I, we I give a presentation on this amazing story, and I even have a slide in there that says ignorance is bliss. Absolutely. I would
Yes.
say
Right.
I was clueless, but it didn't matter because once I figured it out, it wasn't an option. And Greta and I were talking about that the other day, that for us, this was our job.
Mm.
You get up in the morning, we had it down to a great system. When we would get to camp, Greta would start cooking, I start setting up the tent. There were certain things I couldn't do, was really hard to do on my own. So she'd help me, get the structure of the tent up, and then I would roll the sleeping bags out, get the backpack secured, get the food out so she could cook, do all that stuff while she's filtering water. We had it down to really a good system. In the morning, vice versa, we would time ourselves and try to beat our time, to get more efficient and stuff like that.
Mm.
So, but it was a job. This is what we're doing. And my husband would say, well, after the second fall, he said I had to get a helmet, and he said a hockey helmet with a full metal cage face
Like
guard.
a goalie helmet.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
or even players will have helmets that have a metal
Yeah.
face guard thing.
Mhm.
And so we were in town where there was a Dick's Sporting Goods, and we went there, and it was getting to be fall, so hockey was starting up, and I tried one of those helmets on, and oh my gosh, I have new respect for hockey players, which our son has played hockey since he was 4 years old, and he's over
Mhm.
30 years old now, and he's still coaching and playing. So I have new respect for hockey players because those are stinking heavy. I cannot believe how heavy they were. And there's no way I can hike the trail with a hockey helmet. So we went over to the BMX bike helmet.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had a really, really great salesperson that was helping us out, and found one that was lightweight, still had like a visor. So if I went face planting, it would kind of protect my face maybe a little bit. And then it was um it was tons lighter, and I love it because it has a really good gash on one side that would have been another ER visit, I'm convinced.
Oh
So
my gosh. So
yeah,
you saved it, obviously.
yeah. I
Yeah.
really someone suggested, one of the people that were following along our journey put a comment in that I should auction it off for Parkinson's research, and I think that'd be so much fun. So maybe I'll figure out a way to do that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, so as you guys are like, working this thing out, as I'm listening, I'm thinking of Proverbs 3:5 through 6. And it's trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding, like the ignorance is bliss part, right?
Right.
In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your paths. So this is kind of maybe a fun question. What was the most annoying thing about being with each other for 150 plus days?
Oh my gosh. Um, well, one thing was sleeping. And Greta had been away from home for 9 years, 4 years undergrad, 4 years vet school, and then 1 year vet med internship slash kind of residency.
Hmm.
And then she comes home, and she's home for, I think, 8 days before we got on the plane and flew to Maine.
Eight
Um,
days?
8 days while she had these interviews lined up with three different vet practices. She interviewed, negotiated the offers, and then we got on a plane. Oh, maybe it was, no, it was a little more than that. I'm bad at math. She got home like July 3rd,
Okay.
and we flew out the 14th because
Okay.
we had to get to the campsite. We wanted to start on the 15th.
Mhm.
We figured that would give us enough time to get home for Christmas.
Mm.
And so the and the other thing, in the ignorance is bliss category, back to the most annoying thing about being together. Um, you are so sore and tired by the end of the day.
Mhm.
Um, and then you're sleeping in a sleeping bag on the ground. And we
Mhm.
had inflatable air mattresses, but they were annoying because they squeaked when you rolled over on them. They were kind of
Oh,
squeaky and crunchy.
sure.
And I mean, you got used to it, but still, the only way it was really totally comfortable for any length of time was flat on your back.
Oh,
And then I snore when
okay.
I'm flat on my back.
So that
So
was annoying for Greta.
that was very annoying. And it was annoying for me because she kept punching me in the middle of the night to roll
Oh.
over, you know. So so there was that.
Mm.
Other than that, we got our routine down pretty good. There was times where, I was kind of a whiny baby and I just wanted some sympathy, and Greta's not that way. She's like, buck up and deal with it, let's go, kind of thing. And she was right. I mean, we didn't have time for me to be a puddle and wham, wham, wham. We had to get, we had to move it.
Mhm.
So with that last hurricane coming in, there were days where we were doing close to a marathon a day that last week to try to beat the weather.
Wow.
So that was annoying. There
Mhm.
was but with each other, I mean, this is another thing that was really important, having that purpose. We had a common mission. We had a
Mhm.
common God. We,
Yeah.
both believed in the miracles of God that he was giving us along the trail. You know,
Mhm.
to to me, every time I think of it, trail angels
Mhm.
was a real thing along the trail, and they were truly angels. They were helping us. One time, we never even met the people. They had a cooler. Oh, you have trail names, like, I guess for security reasons or whatever, so people can't track you down or go rob your house or something. I don't know, but everybody has trail names. And it took us a long time to figure our trail names because normally your trail family, like who you're hiking with, gives you
Mhm.
your name. And Greta kept giving me stupid suggestions that I didn't want. And then
Yeah.
finally, after my first ER visit fall,
Mhm.
someone on social media, a number of people did actually, suggested that Greta be Lilo and I be Stitch. So that became our trail name, a trail name.
Oh.
And in fact, I'm looking in my office. I have
Yeah.
this cute, adorable drawing that some trail angels got for us at
Oh.
Disney World. That's Lilo and Stitch hugging
Oh.
each other. It's just so
Oh.
cute. Yeah, so sweet. But then when I fell and got the staples, then ha ha, thanks very much, fans, were
Oh.
suggesting I change it to Lilo and Staples, but that didn't really roll off the tongue as nicely, so we kept
Oh
Stitch.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of kind of the flip side of annoyance, like what was your most favorite moment together, if you were to
Oh,
say?
gosh, there were so many. Um, God, I don't know. Probably the beginning and the end would have trumped it.
Mhm.
It's again, it's kind of like the beginning. You reach the end of the
Mhm.
trail, and then for the fun of it, for the end, for the beginning, you hike like 4 miles for the fun of it. At the
Mhm.
end, it's like 8 or 9 miles to get down to the state park's parking lot where your friends are to cheer
Mhm.
you in. But there's
Mhm.
this really pretty stone arch, and you walk through the stone arch, and that's kind of like the iconic end of the trail, even though it ended 8 or 9 miles before that.
Okay.
But everybody was there, and great photo op and stuff like that. And Greta's dad, my husband, were there, and some of our good friends, and it was just really sweet that we actually did it. Another one, when we got to the official terminus or end of the trail,
Mhm.
that 8 or 9 miles before. Greta is not a crier by any stretch of the imagination. She's tough and down to business, but when we got to the end, and there's a book there in a metal case hidden in the rock that you pull out, and you sign your names, and that you finished the trail or you started the trail, depending on which way you're going. And it's like, and she knew it. She knew that we were at the end before I did, because she was, kind of tracking it and stuff like that. And she just started crying, and it was very, very sweet to see her, that we actually did it. That was pretty cool.
Oh, mind blowing, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, it almost felt surreal,
Yeah,
like the end of a movie. It's like,
right.
okay, we did it. What? We did
Now
it?
what?
What?
Like,
Yeah, I
how
know.
do we go back to real life? Like, did you have
That
that like moment of like, how do I integrate back into like life?
absolutely. In fact, people had warned us kind of like the last, I don't know, third of the trail or so that, okay, beware, reentry is really hard. People have a lot of mental health issues, a lot of depression. And, you can imagine being on average out in God's creation for 14 and a quarter miles. I mean, looking at all this beauty and just fun things that happened. Like
Um,
there was one place at the beginning, and I think God did this on purpose, that at the top of mountains where it was sunny, like not in the woods, but you'd like get to the top, the crest of the mountain, and there'd be a gazillion blueberry bushes.
Oh my
And we couldn't pick enough. I mean, we we like had to like remind ourselves that we have to get going. And we would just sat on a rock and ate blueberries,
Oh, how
for like an hour. And and then we had netting to put over your face because there's times on the trail there's like black flies or deer flies or
yeah.
mosquitoes or whatever. And it's really irritating when they bite your face and your eyes and stuff. So we each had a head netting, and Greta filled up her head netting with blueberries, and then
Oh,
we
stop.
went on our
So
way.
fun.
Yeah. And then it was great because I think at that time Greta was also eating. You have to kind of figure out what food works for you, and then you settle on it, and then you eat the same thing,
Mhm.
for the rest of the trail. And mine was cold soak oatmeal um, with cricket powder. I use ground cricket for protein, and because I'm vegetarian except for crickets, and then and M&Ms for extra calories. So but it's cold soak, so the M&Ms don't get like melty and gushy like they normally do if you do it when the
You
oatmeal's.
put those in your oatmeal with
Yeah,
cricket.
yeah.
I would
And
never think of that recipe.
no, well, and it was great because cricket, very sustainable, high,
Okay,
totally digestible,
sure.
not so it doesn't cause inflammation like traditional
Okay.
meat does.
Mm.
And but Greta's go-to breakfast was Pop-Tarts and Nutella.
Okay. Pop-Tarts like with Nutella on top of it?
Yes, well, or like using the Pop-Tarts
A
like
scooper?
a chip and dipping it in there. And oh, we have a fun God story about that too. We were
Yeah.
resupplying at a Walmart, super Walmart that had grocery store and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the only Nutella we could find were these giant tubs of it, and it's so heavy. And
Uh-huh.
we would always buy like the smallest tub, and because we'd have to resupply like every week or 10 days. And so I run around the store looking for like a Walmart clerk, and I find one finally. And I kid you not, he has a Lilo and Stitch t-shirt on.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
You get a picture.
we did.
Love
And
it.
then I said, I know this is a weird request, and I explained to him, my name's Stitch, my daughter's Lilo, we're hiking the trail. And out there they know about the trail. So
Mhm.
unlike here in the Midwest, you usually have to explain to people what the heck it is.
Yeah.
And anyway, I said, I know you probably don't get requests for this a lot, but we want the smallest jar of Nutella. Do you have something smaller than this like
Mhm.
2-pound giant jar? And
Right.
he said, I don't know, I'll go look in the back. Let me know, let me see. And so he he went back, and then he found us, and we were shopping all over the store, and he's carrying this case of small jars of Nutella around
Mhm.
because he didn't know how many we needed. It was
Mhm.
just so sweet, so
Oh,
sweet. Yeah. Anyway,
so many people that like came alongside you like in unexpected ways. It's just
well, we know that we stayed in like 25 pe perfect strangers home, 45 trail angels in total, helped us along the way. So it was pretty great.
amazing.
Hey, I'm gonna pause here. I see my
Yeah.
daughter's walking over and the dogs are gonna bark. So
Okay. Let me
do you,
pause here. I'll pause the recording.
oh, we were talking about,
All right, we're back. We just took a little pause. So back to you, Susan.
yeah. Well, yeah, the people that helped us along the trail were
Mhm.
amazing. They'd usually reach out in social media, comment on videos and stuff.
Mhm.
People would say stuff like, bad weather's coming, it's going to rain, or another hurricane's coming. We live close by. Let us know when you'll be at this road crossing, and we'll come pick you up and get you out of the weather. And to resupply and, help you out and get you back on trail the next morning. That was something that just blew our minds. And just the kindness of the community along the trail was something that just restores your faith in humanity. Just people genuinely kind and helping, they don't get anything out of it. There's one family, they're like, I know you're vegetarian. I've been practicing my masala recipe.
Oh,
Please, please, please come to our house. And just like,
sweet.
it just was so sweet and so humbling to have the, people help us like that.
Oh. Well, I would love for you to share, and this is going to be super off the cuff. We'll see if you can come up with something, but I just feel led to ask you this, and it might sound really random, but I love quotes. I just love quotes. So if we were to have a quotable from your experience, I know you mentioned don't quit, basically get up when you
Yeah.
fall down. Like those are things that are really highlighted to me. But if you were to like put something out there that would kind of encompass your experience to pass on to people, what would that
Mhm.
quote be?
Hmm. When you started talking, what jumped in my brain and my heart was listen for the still small voice of God.
Mm,
And
mm,
it just it seems like in our busy, crazy, hectic, challenging world,
yeah,
to just be able to stop
yeah,
and listen for the voice of God.
yeah.
And you know, it's always the right thing. It may not be what you want to hear. You may be surprised by it or not understand it. But if you slow down and quiet yourself and listen, that is just so powerful. And
Yeah.
we were so blessed to have that experience.
Mhm.
My favorite picture of the trail isn't the grand mountains, isn't even the final picture at the end of the hike where we're finishing and all our family and friends there. But
Mhm.
it's our daughter Greta and I sitting on a dock on this beautiful mountain lake. And
Mhm.
it's late in the day and it's just gorgeous. There isn't another evidence of humanity other than the dock and us sitting there. And it
Mhm.
just reminds me
Mhm.
that God is ever present and he's there for you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's just such a great experience to be able to have witnessed that, lived
Mhm.
that, shared that. I mean, it, it was it was tough. There was times it was brutal. There was
Mhm.
times we were had every piece of clothing on and were soaking wet, soaked to the bone, uncontrollably shaking hypothermia, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Oh. Susan, this is amazing. Seriously, you have inspired so many people, and I just want to re-quote your quote, and for the still small voice of God.
Yeah.
We every day have an opportunity to do this, and it's interesting because I even said, I think that it's a lost art to listen
Oh,
in
yeah.
general, and sometimes you're actually listening for silence
Yeah.
because he doesn't always have something to say to us, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's those opportunities to be still
Yeah.
and know that he's there every step of the way, like
Yeah.
your journey.
Hmm.
I just love you, and I'm so thankful that you were able to be on today. I know that there's so much more coming your way, and I'm sure that we'll have you on another time. But as you, um, I do this for the one. The Lord had me to start the podcast for the one. So, is there anything else that you'd want to share with the listener today to encourage them? Any words of wisdom? Obviously, you've shared a lot of words of wisdom here, but anything else that's really on your heart to encourage this one that's listening today? And then, would you pray us out?
No, thanks. Yeah, I think, for me, the kind of the tagline or the takeaway from the trail and what I learned is to identify what is your mountain. You know,
Mm,
And and for us, it was up and down Mount Everest 16 times. And the
Mhm.
mountain was doing it and finishing it and raising money. And we had an incredible story. So many generous people, people sharing the story. Um, and but it all starts with, we talked about purpose and having something that's bigger than yourself. And the other side of that coin is, that's kind of the positive. The other side is, wow, you're up against stuff,
Mhm.
your mountains are, everybody's got mountains. They're big, they're challenging. Sometimes they look impassable,
Yeah.
but then comes along somebody that extends a hand
Mm,
and offers to help.
mm,
Someone says, "Hey, get out of the rain. I will shelter you."
mm,
Someone says, you know, you I had IT band horrible issues toward the end of the trail, and
mm,
people would say, "Let me take your backpack. You don't need
mm,
to carry it today. You're going to stay at our house tonight. You don't need a sleeping bag. You need emergency stuff and enough for food."
mm,
And, that's about 10 pounds. Here's a day pack. Here's your bottles of water. Here's your water filter system. Here's your emergency communication device. Go have fun. And Greta would carry all that stuff, and I didn't have anything to carry.
mm,
It was just people that were wiser and could see things that we couldn't see.
mm,
Surround yourself with those. Don't be
mm.
afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Don't to say afraid to say, you're better at this than I am. You be the leader. Um,
Mhm,
it applies in so many different ways.
mm.
And that's one of the many things I loved about the trail is the learning, the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to process that, and now to share that. It's
Yeah.
just so big, so powerful. And, I don't want it to be a secret. I don't want God doesn't want it to be a secret. I
No.
mean, there are just undeniable miracles and witnesses, that we can tell stories
Mhm,
of how God helped us out. There's no way that,
mhm,
you know, a 66-year-old, non-athletic, short,
mhm.
klutzy person could do
Yeah.
that trail without the miracles of God.
It's amazing.
No way. No
Yeah.
way. I mean, I was walking the dogs yesterday. I rolled my ankle and fell a second time. And it wasn't
Oh,
even on the bad ankle. I don't know. I don't know why I fell. I just to the ground. You know, that's
yeah.
not someone who's a trail runner. It's,
Right.
you know,
Right.
but now I loved it when you said it. I can be a trail guide. I
Yeah.
can take what I've
Absolutely.
learned and share it. And
Yes.
and I really encourage others to share it too. This isn't something that is it has to be just me. Our YouTube videos are out there. We had
Mhm.
people tell us, "Oh, they're inspiring. It's
Mm,
better than TV. Our kids can watch it. We don't have to worry about,
right.
what's going to be said or what's going to be on." We were
Mhm.
goofy, we were silly, we made up songs. I have a
Aw.
horrible voice, but
Yeah.
sometimes Greta even made me sing by myself. It's like,
Like the freedom, right? So much
yeah,
freedom.
yeah. It's
Oh,
it's great. And
goodness.
not everybody. I know, even I will probably never get that opportunity again. But
Yeah.
doesn't mean I have to stop hiking. Doesn't
Right.
mean I can't take the dog for a walk up and down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can go to the marsh. We can listen to the birds. We can see the deer. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
it's we can pick
Just
up
blaze a
recycle.
new trail. You're
Yeah,
blazing new trails, right? Every day.
yeah. Every day,
Love that.
and look for those opportunities, and along the way, be a trail angel and help
Mhm.
someone else. You know,
That's
it's
mhm.
it's so easy to do and it makes such an impact.
Yes. Well, Susan, you are amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that you came on today. What would be the best way for listeners to contact you? I'll be sure to put your YouTube channel in the show
Yeah.
notes. But if they want
Yeah.
to reach out to you, maybe for speaking or, for
Yeah.
general questions about your experience, what would be the
Yeah.
best way for them to contact you?
Yeah. I think my email address, Susan at susanottenpresents.com.
Okay.
And that's URL for my website so they can um Yeah, and that would be great if you know others that, want or need to hear this story. Um, I'd love to hear from you, and if there's any ways I can help with coaching or it's one thing to hear it and then go, oh yeah, right. That worked for you. That's not going to work for us or our organization or our church or our this or all that. Well, it might, and maybe there's a way I can help with that. Maybe there's a way a second set of eyes coming in from the outside can have different vision and clarity to be able to help problem solve or strategize. So be willing to help in any way I can.
Well, I will be sure to put your information in the show notes. I'm going to close with the anchoring verse for Hope Unlocked. It's may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. And that's Romans 15:13. So thank you for being a brave voice who's setting many free. I said many's free, many free. I appreciate you sharing today, and I will be back with another episode next week. Thank you, Susan.
Okay. Thank you so much.